Welcome to the Better Online Events mini course by Thrive Themes. In this lesson, we'll talk about how to run better online meetings. Before we get into that, let's quickly define what we mean by online meetings. Like, how is an online meeting really different from something like a class that we discussed in a previous lesson? The main difference here is that in an online meeting, you usually have a small-ish group of people who are all supposed to be collaborating and interacting with each other in real time. And I think that is important to keep in mind for offline meetings as well as online meetings. Because if it's just going to be one person, the boss or the manager or whoever, talking and everybody's just sitting there listening, then, well, that's not an effective meeting, is it? That's the kind of meeting that could have been an email. And if you are working remotely and online, that's the kind of meeting that, like I said, could actually be literally an email, or where you might as well just record that message, right? If I have a message that I want to present, that I want everyone to listen to, I can just record a video and send that video to my team. There's absolutely no need to get everyone to connect and everyone in a room at the same time, in a virtual room in this case, just for everyone to listen to me talk for 5 minutes. And that right there is the first thing to keep in mind, as we covered in lesson 1, right? You always want to think about, okay, should this be synchronous? Do I want to get everyone together at the same time, or should I pre-record this? So everything we discussed in lesson 1 also applies here. Now, with that said, what makes a good and effective online meeting? As a basis, I'm going to refer to the work of Daniel Coyle. In his excellent book, The Culture Code, he describes the differences that he found between highly effective, excellent teams and bad or poorly run teams. And I want to highlight 3 things that he noticed that he describes in the book that highly effective teams have in common. The first thing is that highly effective teams, when they are having meetings, are interacting in a very real-time and often rapid and spontaneous way with each other. So people will be calling out ideas, making suggestions, asking questions, everything in a pretty rapid succession. So there's not necessarily one person speaks for a while, then there's a bit of awkward silence, then the next person speaks for a while, and so on. The second point is that in highly effective teams, in meetings, there's usually kind of this synergy between working and interacting. So we're not just sitting there doing nothing. Everybody's working on something, taking notes, or maybe everybody's sketching on a whiteboard that everybody can see while we're having a discussion. And this is how creative teams work. This is how teams work that generate lots of good ideas and lots of good work. And factor number 3 is that in highly effective teams, on average, everybody gets about equal speaking time in a meeting. And when we think about it, I think it's easy to imagine what a difference this makes. If you have a meeting where there's basically just 1 or 2 people talking all the time, everybody else is just sitting around, and people are kind of too shy to ask questions or ask or interrupt, and there's no real collaboration happening, everybody's just sitting and waiting for the speakers to stop speaking, we can clearly see that that's not an effective meeting. And this kind of much more interactive, spontaneous, and engaged meeting that Daniel Coyle describes is obviously a totally different thing to be a part of. Now, it's hard enough to create a meeting like that offline, and it's even harder online. But while it may be hard, it is possible. And here are 5 specific things that you can do to run much better online meetings. Number 1, let's get the easiest thing out of the way first. You have to have a meeting tool that everybody uses for an online group call, and there are dozens of tools to choose from. Some good free options to consider are Skype meetings, Google Hangouts, and Jitsi. And another tool that is worth considering is WebEx, which has a generous free plan, plus also some paid plans for larger meetings and more features. But really, almost any decent online group calling or meeting app is going to do everything you need to do for a good meeting. It's really not down to any specific feature or anything like that. As long as you can get a solid signal and a reliable call with a group of people, whatever app you use doesn't really matter that much. Number 2, let's get into the more important stuff. Do a hash out session with your team. So call a meeting where at least 15 or up to 15 minutes of the beginning of the meeting are simply dedicated to everyone hashing out any kind of technical issue. You want to get to the point where everyone has clear audio, clear video, clear signal, and that is the basis for starting your meetings. One of the things you can do is you can send everyone on your team lesson 1 of this course, which teaches them the basics of what they need to be aware of when they get on webcam and on audio and start sharing with a group of people. So all the stuff we discuss in lesson 1, basically everybody needs to make sure that they've got all of that sorted out. Think about how much friction it causes and how much time is lost when you have a meeting and it always takes a few minutes at least before everyone manages to actually log on to the meeting, and then someone's audio isn't working and someone else can't see video and someone else has a screaming child in the background and so on. And it's important to not let that drag on in every single meeting. It's important that everyone on your team who's going to participate in meetings on a regular basis sorts out their surroundings and their tech once and then reuses that same setup every single time. So ideally, everybody can go to a quiet spot in a quiet room somewhere. Everybody has a headset. Everybody has a microphone that's close to their mouth. Everybody has a decently placed webcam. Everybody has good lighting and so on. And everybody has their settings dialed in. And if you always use the same meeting tools with the exact same settings and the exact same hardware, then you don't have to do this kind of awkward figuring out technical stuff for the first few minutes at the beginning of every meeting. So the hash out session is basically the idea that get everything sorted out once and then reuse what works. Number 3, for an effective collaborative meeting, you want everyone to be unmuted on the meeting. Because like we discussed before, if you want to have this kind of spontaneous interaction, then you have to have everyone unmuted, meaning that anyone can make a comment at any time or ask a question at any time without having to remember, oh, I have to unmute myself first. And it's also important for just like the in-person feeling where you can hear reactions from other people. You know, a simple example of this is you say something funny and you hear chuckles. That makes it feel normal. Whereas if you're on a meeting where everyone's muted, you say something funny and it's just dead silence, it's kind of awkward. And the same is true for just any other kind of confirmation sounds or any other feedback you get that is often non-verbal, but it's important to hear and it's important to kind of get a good flow going in an interaction. So in a good meeting, you really want to have everyone unmuted, but that's why we need to do the hash out session. Because by default, what is often a problem is that a bunch of people will have loads of background noise or their microphone is terrible or whatever, and you basically have to get everyone to mute themselves except the person speaking, otherwise it's a disaster. So the hash out session should take care of that. Then the rule is everybody's unmuted by default, but the other rule is that everyone on the meeting needs to have mute discipline. So when I'm on a meeting, I have to be responsible for noticing if there's noise in my environment and muting myself when that's the case. I shouldn't be waiting for other people to say, hey, what's going on? There's loads of noise coming out through someone. And then we have to figure out, and then I realize, oh, it's me, okay, and then I mute myself. I have to have the discipline to take care of that on my end. So, if there's a plane passing overhead or something else noisy is happening, I should notice and mute myself and not interrupt the flow of the meeting. This needs to be established and can be done in the hash out session as well. If everybody knows these are the rules, then you can quickly get into a good flow in meetings. Number 4, use real-time collaborative tools. There are lots of tools you can use that would replace something like a big whiteboard in an offline meeting that everybody can work on at the same time. There are virtual online whiteboards where you can see real-time updates of what everyone is scribbling on them. And there's also the simple option of using something like Google Docs where everybody can be looking at the same document and everybody can see in real time what everybody else is writing. Even if you just have one note taker, it can help if everyone can see those notes being taken in real time. It helps people keep everything on track and have references for what's going on. Beyond that, there are loads of different online collaborative tools that are either kind of all-in-one tools such as Notion or Basecamp. And there are many specialized tools, for example, for design teams that will give you functions that might be good for your specific workflow. Now, I would love to be able to tell you, use this tool, it's the best one. But it just doesn't work like that. There are so many different teams and so many different ways of working together and so many different use cases that there isn't a single tool that everybody should be using. But what we'll do is in the blog post that goes with this video, we will link to a whole bunch of different collaborative tools that will give you a starting point of what to look for and some tools that you can consider testing. The main thing is that we want to replicate this kind of everybody working together while the meeting is happening. And an online collaborative tool can do exactly that. And number 5, here's an interesting tidbit that I recently learned. At the beginning of the meeting, show people your hands by waving, for example. And also try to make sure that you've placed your camera in such a way that when you're speaking, people can see your gestures and people can see your hands. Apparently, this is something that has a psychological effect on people. We are not aware of this, but when we meet someone, we subconsciously check their hands. This might be some kind of ancient wiring where we're checking to make sure they don't have a weapon or something like that. But if we're interacting with someone and we can't see their hands, that just makes us slightly uneasy. This is something I recently learned from Vanessa Van Edwards in a really interesting discussion that she had with Matt Mullenweg, the CEO of Automattic, on his distributed podcast. I will link to that podcast episode below. There's loads of other tips like this about like the psychology of how can you put each other at ease and how can you kind of translate this nonverbal stuff that happens offline online. So this is a great resource for anyone who's going to be running meetings. Again, link to that below. All right, so with those 5 steps, that will set you on a good path to run far more effective and far more free-flowing online meetings. Let me know if you have any other tips and suggestions by leaving a comment below. And of course, if you have any questions, anytime, leave a comment below. We try to answer them all.